We are live. Bambos, we're live. Stop playing with your phone. Today,
Finding forgiveness.
finding forgiveness on
a wonderful chaos.
I feel like we're like the Muppets, like those two Muppets that are.
We are.
Da, 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 da.
Hey, we never actually did a proper cheers with our
We never did. Welcome to a wonderful chaos,
welcome.
where it's truly wonderful and chaotic. Today.
Like as soon as I saw the title, I had to think about the woman that killed your mother.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's that was written in the next book, right?
Yeah.
And I even wrote an article that's going to be on Buzzworthy on that subject as well. I see forgiveness is such an interesting topic, and we're going to spend a lot of time talking about it today. And I find it, of course, interesting because it's on so many levels. One of those kind of, call it, those confused areas of your brain that if you don't make peace with it, it just drives you unconsciously all the time. Right? Like hardest person you'd think that the hardest person I had maybe time forgiving would have been the woman that killed my mom, but it's not actually. The hardest person was my dad.
Yeah.
So in some ways, it would be more interesting to talk about forgiving my dad, who, I grew up with the verbal abuse. I grew up with never, always being told you're not going to amount to anything. So his voice in my head was harder to make peace with than this woman who just, I could say, hey, she got drunk and drove into my mom and drove away. And, that was just a dumb night on her part, as painful as it was for me. But with my dad, it's like, no, he, over and over again, I felt abused. So, yeah, that would have been for me. How about for you? What would be the hardest thing you...
Just before we continue,
yeah.
Do you still sometimes catch yourself having that voice in your head?
No. No, never. No.
That's great.
Isn't that nice? And I can discuss why that is. It's a beautiful question, because I think, and this is one of these things that I often see in my life, is, am I managing my thoughts, right? Am I trying to manage a negative thought? Or is it basically just kind of thoughts that come up and I just sort of make peace whatever those thoughts are, to the point that those thoughts just don't come up anymore? Because what you repress stays there, right?
Exactly. It owns you.
It owns you. So in that way, that's been the case, at least for me, in that area. Which doesn't mean there isn't these incidental things that come up day to day, and then I get triggered, of course, and then I find, oh yeah, that's the peace that I make, which happens, obviously.
I think it's nice to also, during the course of this hour that we have together, that you share a little bit some of the things that you've done in your life to step out of those.
I love that you focus the questions towards me, where I'm actually more interested in going into your world, because you could say I'm, in that sense, relatively clean, right?
Yeah.
I'd be like more interesting where it's like relatively messy.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of which, I mean, we've jumped right into this topic, which is cool with me, but I'm also curious, how are you? Like, how are things for you right now? We can go back, but I'd like just to do a quick check-in, just to hear how life is for you at the moment.
I've been feeling really the need for physical touch in my life. I mean, Rani hugged me on Saturday, right?
Yeah.
And it was very nice to feel that nurture again.
And what is it like not having that? Like, how has it been?
Well, it's not like in the past. If I needed a hug, I'm like, oh, fuck it, I'm just gonna go on the streets and ask people for a hug and have really a lot of fun with. Like, now that's not even there for me. And I do see a lot of friends who saw me on Saturday. They would come close, but obviously I'm not. I'm actually expecting a second wave of Corona myself.
Okay.
So I don't want to take any risks, especially in our relationship also.
Yeah.
So the way I've been dealing with waking up and just feeling, fuck, I really wish or yearn to hold someone. I allow myself to feel that completely. And then I get myself out of bed, because if I don't get out of bed, I'm one of these people that can just get really depressed.
Wow.
I saw this morning was really cold, so I just put my little shorts on and I went for a workout in the park.
Okay.
5 a.m. And
so you're telling me at 5 a.m. you'll say, I got to get up.
You're getting up like your life depends on it.
Oh, wow. And if you don't get up, then you'll go into like, if you stayed until 6, would you feel depressed?
I'm going to be investing in those thoughts.
Okay.
And the idea of getting up is actually interrupting the story in my head.
Okay.
So I get out, I'm in the park, it's windy, I'm just wearing shorts. I feel this intensity of wind. So I also intensify the workout, and I kind of use the workout and the elements of nature, which are painfully on my body. And I'm kind of connecting what's happening in my mind to what's happening in my body. And it kind of, I think you also said it's like a meditation. I'm using the workout.
It's almost like I once did this Buddhist meditation, right? I was in Japan and I sat with a Buddhist, and I woke up 5 a.m. and they put me outside on the ring where they were meditating.
Yeah.
And then they smacked me on the back and stuff, all that stuff. But the thing was I was so cold, like in my knees, of course, I wasn't used to sitting in the position, so they were going numb. But what I felt like I had to kind of go into more of a transcendental state to allow myself to kind of move through whatever was going on in my body. And it seems like almost like coping mechanism in some ways, if I hear you speak about it like this.
It was 2.5 hours this morning, and I wasn't going to leave the park. That's the agreement I have with myself. I'm not going to leave the park until I do all 11 sets.
Okay.
And when I got home, I just felt really, I could still sit with the feeling in my body that, touch, but it wasn't having a grip on me like it did before.
So, I mean, again, it's almost like you go to the physical exertion in order to sort of make peace with what's going on in yourself. That's sort of, I think, how I know you, if I think about it.
Yeah.
It's curious. I do the opposite. I sit in bed for another 2 hours and say, Andy, it's fine. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. And then I gain 20 pounds.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I've actually said,
sorry, if I can't.
I've actually said no to coping, like things which I would normally do is stay in. If my mind's really active, or if I find it difficult to get out of bed, those are the days that I'll get out of bed. If I say I'm reaching out for unhealthy food, I'm going to go for a walk.
Yeah.
Like for everything that can impact me in a way of like getting me out of the head in an unhealthy way.
But what I want to know is where is that emotionally for you now? So like because you move through the emotion all those ways.
Yeah.
Do you find that you've given that emotion a place, or do you feel like it's still lingering and it's just sort of put on the sideline? Like, where is it now for you?
I wouldn't say it's lingering. I would say that I feel it all the time, only I'm more at peace with it.
Okay.
Like, it's funny. It's there.
Yeah.
I feel it if I'm walking on the street and I see people or friends. I feel it.
Okay.
So it's it's a bit of a paradox, actually, because if I think about it, I find more peace with it being there now than when I woke up this morning.
You gave it a place.
Yeah.
Cool.
But I'm sure tomorrow I'm going to have to do the same work again.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. Okay, so I'd love to move into forgiveness, because I'm also seeing that if we stay there, we can stay the whole day there.
This is so awesome. Yeah, forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
Yeah, I forgave myself for a lot of stuff that I've done in my life and taken responsibility. I heard a lot of people in my life have been hurt by me being blind to my behaviors and being very responsible, actually.
Okay, that's interesting because this kind of we've had this discussion comes up in different shapes and forms, right?
It does.
Basically, you were a drug addict.
Yeah.
And you did stupid stuff, obviously, that you're ashamed of, right?
Yeah. Well, ashamed of. I don't think I can say I'm ashamed anymore. I could see that.
Oh yeah, true. I mean, that there's part of you that would still have that like shame aspect to it. I don't know what best put it.
Well, I look back and I'm like, fuck, I used to steal. Shit, I used to lie.
Yeah.
I used to cheat. I used to manipulate, but they were from a space of this guy who took drugs to numb himself because he needed so much love.
Yeah.
And it was his way of coping.
Got it. So you're able to forgive that guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because what you say now is basically what I thought we'd get to in minute 50 of this session. Right? Because what I've learned from my own journey in forgiveness is that there has been a moment when I was trying or having to forgive the other. And what I noticed in forgiving them, there was a paradigm when I was living in that presumed that they were guilty. In order to forgive them, I always had to assume they were bad, which almost always gave me the sort of like this weird upper hand. Like I was always like the person that forgave them, like this magnanimous thing.
Slow down here. That's really, you've said this before. And so I forgive you actually insinuates that they've actually done something wrong.
Yeah.
And what would be the lens that you would see it from where it's clean?
What I've seen in myself, and this is not out of a training, it's just, wow, this is what feels most honest for me now, is I forgive me for not seeing you. You know, in the going back to the subject of the woman that killed my mom, right? I did the last letter to her, driving to the U.S. Every day was a new letter because I wrote a letter at each session. And one of the people, my friends, wrote to me and said, "Have you written to the woman that killed your mom?" And it was like the weirdest question for me. Like, I mean, I didn't feel bad. I was like, why would I write her? Right? That was the first thought that came to mind. And then I thought, you know what? I just realized, wow, if I think about it, on that day, that woman's life changed forever. Like one bad night, one stupid drinking because she was suffering at home because her mom was dying of cancer. She did anything to numb the pain. And then she goes out and kills my mom. And now all of a sudden she's labeled a felon. Like, if you think about it, like, who was there for her? Like, who had any compassion for her at that moment?
I don't think she even had compassion for herself.
I can't imagine it. And so for me, I didn't really give her much thought. I didn't hate her. I didn't think about her. I was like, shit happens, and I moved on in my life. But in writing the letter to her at the session was basically kind of sinking in with the idea that, wow, like she I don't know where she is, or if she's still alive for that matter. But what I don't know is, does she know that she's always been loved? Like, does she know that if I saw her on the street, she would never need to think, oh my God, I hope this person, if he ever were to recognize me or wherever that I'd live in fear of anything of that. So for me, it was really important not only to write her and not only go through the forgiveness, but let her know that she's loved. And if I saw her, that I'd give her a hug. That like she wouldn't need to live in any thought that she'd done wrong. This is part of life. You know? And who knows? I mean, I don't know if she could even receive it, but that wouldn't be the point. You know, the point is that to also be there in love for somebody is kind of the greatest act you can offer. Yeah.
Well, it's really touching, Andy, how you articulate it. I feel it in my bones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know any other way to fully like be present in love, to be honest with you, just to be present in love. The same is true for my dad. Right? When I called him, like, because, with my dad, we didn't talk for 10 years. Like, like basically one day I came home from a trip that was traveling and away for I guess maybe a year living in Japan at that time. I came home and I intended to go back to Switzerland to be with my then girlfriend. And when he found out, he exploded and he basically said, "You've got 30 minutes to get everything you own out of my house and you're dead. You're dead. You're out of my will. You'll never call me again. You don't come to my funeral. I don't go to your funeral. You're dead." And he screamed and screamed and screamed until I sort of like vibrated with fear and anxiety and literally got everything that I owned. And then it was like the house burned behind me. Right. And we didn't talk for 10 years after that. Like he screamed. It was so bad how he screamed at me that his then girlfriend, who was sober for 10 years, drank that night. She went off of her Alcoholics Anonymous. So yeah, that that stayed with me for like year after year. It was festered like a reoccurring story in my head. Like, I made worse and embellished and just done as a sort of almost a machine so I could vilify him and then be righteous indignation and then blame anyone who wasn't on my side. Like if you don't understand this is wrong, then you have a problem, right? It even caused trouble with my brothers. Because in some ways I was like, guys, we can't let anyone in the family be treated like this. Like, I don't even want to be defended. I want us all to agree that he's not allowed to behave this way. And they kind of said, hey, listen, we got to kind of stay out of this, which often happens when you have these kind of dynamics. Yeah. So, yeah. So there was a lot of storytelling at that time.
So you potentially in that time were even thinking of your brothers as being perpetrators?
No. But I was thinking like I felt so alone that I would have wanted somebody to come to my defense. Like that was the feeling. Like I wasn't strong enough to go against him on my own. And I felt like anyone that wasn't telling him this behavior wasn't acceptable wasn't somehow enabling it. Like that's how my mentality was, because I didn't have the power, as it were, to fight it alone. So it was, I mean, it ended up being an important step for me, because you can imagine if you're, and everyone can identify with this, is if you're in a relationship with a parent and they're behaving in a certain way, and then you what do you call it? You blame them for their behavior. There's a bit of a codependency, obviously, because I need them to be something that they're not in order for me to feel good or comfortable. So by him literally saying I was dead, he gave me like the freedom to finally live my own life. So I was deeply grateful for him for that. It was like a big, big step for me in my own life.
How many years did it take you to come to that, though?
10 years. He called me he admitted himself into a kind of an insane asylum. And he called me from the insane asylum. And then I said, I won't take the call. I told the secretary at the time, I said, just put it to voicemail. She knew like the background, but I said, just put him to voice. But she looked at me like, you want me to do what? Like, yeah. And I couldn't take the call because every time I would accept like him into my life, I would shut down for the next 6 months. Like he had the power to take away all my self-confidence. So I literally had to keep safe distance. Otherwise, I would be jeopardizing my own mental well-being. Yeah.
But you took that call, right?
No, I didn't take that call. No, I basically didn't talk to him maybe 3 to 4 months after that. And that's when I started my own journey. Then I went to work with Case, my mentor at that time. Yeah. And Case asked me, and it was one of the most beautiful moments, which is where the actual forgiveness came in. Case said, Andy, why did your dad do the things he did? He threw you out of the house. He cut you out of the will. Like, why did he do that?
Yeah, I can even start crying thinking about it. He loved you.
And I said, he loved me. And then, even now I can cry about it. And as soon as I heard the words come out of my mouth, I couldn't in any way feel any any of the attached story I had anymore. I couldn't feel it anymore. It's like, wow, he loved me. And then what I did was I picked up the phone and I called him and I apologized for not being able to see him all those years.
Fuck.
Yeah. And then that redefined our relationship forever. He'd still behave the same way he did before, but I actually didn't have any trigger anymore. So I just kind of lovingly laughed and enjoyed it, you know?
Yeah, nice.
Even when he did stupid stuff, he'd say the dumbest things, and there was no trigger in me. I would just say, well, you know, and it came from a pure place. You could feel it. I'd say, what makes you say that? You know, when he talked poorly about my mom, I'd say, well, she died, 20 years ago. What's going on? And he'd just start to cry. So what would have usually turned into a fight between the two of us actually turned into this loving, connected space.
Because he didn't feel judged, and he felt the space to feel himself.
Yes. Because he wasn't judged.
So what you're actually saying, Andy, is because you found peace in yourself, he didn't have to change. You just met him where he was.
Exactly. Yeah. We have someone who's made a lot of comments.
I was just...
Yeah.
I don't know this person. You know her?
I'm not sure. It'd be nice to... Hello, Mariam.
Mariam Benani. Something I'm trying to understand more deeply is that forgiveness in itself might mean that there exists some element of blame or victimhood with oneself.
Yeah. That goes to what we were saying earlier, is that in order for there to be forgiveness, there has to be a perpetrator. So in order for there to be a perpetrator, one has to be a victim. Right? So, yeah.
I think like what comes up for me is finding peace with whatever's there.
Yeah. Yeah, which is easier said than done, right? I mean, you could say that about anything in life.
Yeah.
But forgiveness is one of those extra notch kind of things. Yeah. Because in a weird way, by the time you need to forgive someone, you've already built up a resentment to them. Basically, you've had an expectation that was unfulfilled.
When you say they've built up resentment, I can imagine it's like you're not only building resentment, but it builds up in your body as a tension, right?
Hell yeah.
And then to what degree do you hold that in your body?
Yes. Of course. I mean, that's why you see like some of the most important work people do is body work, right? After you get your head and your heart clean, you got to like, where is it stuck in your body? And Mariam continues with us now.
And if I feel like a victim or feel like I'm blaming something or someone, then I'm not getting the root of what is in me is creating that dynamic. Bravo. Yes.
And that goes, just to keep that on for a moment, what that speaks to is exactly the question of why did he do it, right? So instead of me saying, because the story I told myself for years was, my dad is a horrible person. He basically threw me out of the house. He did this, he did that, and I tell everyone the same story. It got kind of boring, right? Can you imagine this man? Like, I come home and he says I'm dead to him. Why? Because I decided to live in Switzerland. For the best excuse, I as he was yelling at me, it was one of the funniest lines I've ever heard. Do you realize they don't have air conditioning in the movie theaters in Switzerland? It's like, what the hell are we talking about? But that was kind of his, bipolar brain, right? And so
it's a good reason not to move to Switzerland.
I'm blaming someone. Yeah. So in some ways, I wasn't able to say, why did he do it? Right? Because then I have to be out of a victim state in order to ask that question. What's going on there in order for someone to behave in this, what might seem like the most absurd place possible. Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Thank you, Mariam.
Well, she's continuing.
She is. It's almost like we can have a conversation with Mariam.
And if it stays at the level of blame, then there's no real self-responsibility.
Exactly.
Or even self-growth.
Yeah, true. Because as soon as one establishes themselves as the victim and the others as the perpetrator, as we said over and over again, basically all we do is we have to create more story in order for that narrative to stay. Like, so everything we have to look at, what they do has to be in the lens of, oh, they're just doing that to screw me. Or they're just bad, right? Whatever the story is. So yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. So obviously, Mariam has a clear
Yeah,
connection with this in herself as well.
it's funny how the brain is so easily jumping into the negative.
Mm.
And like what I've learned from you working with you actually over the last years is assume the best in people. So even if someone is late or a client doesn't get back to me,
Yeah.
always assume that they're busy, and it just made my life so much easier.
Yeah.
So much easier.
Oh, wait, can I share a story to this today?
Yeah.
So I buy a painting on Marktplatz 2 months ago.
Yeah.
So I buy a painting from I can't remember his name. It's a Dutch artist. He was friends with Van Gogh, but his paintings are really cheap. I don't want to give his name, otherwise people start buying his paintings and I can't get them anymore. So basically, I buy it 2 months ago, and it doesn't come. Okay, the guy says I'm going to send it tomorrow. It doesn't come. 2 weeks later, I say, hey, quick reminder, you said you were going to send it. It doesn't come. Now we're a month and a half later. He doesn't respond to my message.
Yeah.
So we're now on 6 weeks.
Has he responded to any of your messages?
He's responded to one or two, like, I'll get to it. I'm around to it. Like this, the kind of thing where you think, okay, so I think 9 times out of 10, like what's your fourth email when that hasn't been responded to going to look like?
You've actually built a case. You've built a case which says, okay, this is what I'm experiencing with you.
Yeah.
So what's going on? So you're a little bit more firm.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I went the other way and I said, wow, your life must be really horrible, because I know from an initial writing, I could feel that this wasn't some charlatan. At least that's what I felt. You never know. But I felt like, wow, so this guy's life must be in a really bad place. How bad does it have to be if for 2 months you don't get to do something that you promised someone you were going to do? Like that's how my brain processes it. So then I wrote him this morning and I said, listen, it's been 2 months. You said you were going to send it a few times already. Like, wow, life must be really bad for you. Like, I hope you're well.
Beautiful.
And he said, I mean, this is, and I almost want to cry now. He said, I was for weeks in the hospital. I didn't know if I was going to make it. And then we had this beautiful interaction from what would have been this horrible, like screwy, like you screwy jerk thing. It turned into, and then there was love shared. There was gratitude. He was grateful because he felt pressure that he didn't do it and he knew he should have been yelled at. And instead of being yelled at, he was given gratitude.
And love.
And love.
And understanding.
Yeah.
Wow, Andy.
And you know, those are the moments when life is beautiful. Like that's the thing that makes life beautiful. Yeah.
I really appreciate you.
Yeah. Yeah, so many times people don't see that you know, they just want to assume what they need and want takes precedent over just being present with other people, you know, and then we blame them afterwards. Yeah. Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah.
Or even those people need forgiveness.
Of course. Yeah. Oh, it's they're not terrible. It's terrible. Yeah. Yeah. Mariam continues. I think that Mariam is basically our guest today. Yeah. She didn't have contact with her father for 18 years. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah.
And she also went for many years. I blamed him for leaving me and my brothers. It took me 18 years to understand that no one is to blame.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I'm not a victim to anyone.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And then I could, from that neutral space, understand what belief about myself could be creating such a situation.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. What more is there to say, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know who Dr. Gabor Mate.
You know what? I've seen his face, and I just know his face because he's got one of the most unique faces you can imagine. I wouldn't normally know anyone's name, but he's got this face that almost looks like a cartoon character. Yeah. So I don't know what his work is per se, but okay. I think he may do circling, but don't quote me on that because that wouldn't be fair to categorize someone I don't really know. So thank you, Mariam, for sharing all of that. It was really beautiful to have you with us now.
So then the question is, how do we deal with someone that actually sees us as we've done something wrong and doesn't forgive?
Yeah.
And like in my body, it's like, wow. I mean, they're showing themselves to me, and I could never judge them, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, on some ways, you could almost say anyone that projects onto you, there's going to be some truth in it, but that doesn't make it the truth.
There's going to be truth to it, but to what degree does that justify the behavior?
Oh, I mean, well, in trying to justify anything, you're already going to get in trouble, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, everyone is, how would you say? Everyone is doing the best they can, right? We're just doing the best we can. And if that's the way they behave because they don't have any alternative, then hey, then we can't blame them for that. That's just them doing the best they can. And the more space we leave, the more we give them time to come to us at another state when they might be more able to connect with us wherever they evolve to. If we don't burn the bridge, right? Because we need to say, screw you, like, get out of my life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just to make sure, do you want to do just some money? Before we go there, just so we make it clear, Dr. Gabor works with addiction and PTSD using plant medicines. Great. Well, we'll be discussing plant medicines on another episode for sure. Like, that's an episode I'm very much looking forward to. But
I know you are.
Thank you for.
So is your wife.
Yeah, she is, of course. For those that don't know, Ronnie is very discouraging of me discussing anything on air that may be seen as illegal in some countries. Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually in a situation with a dear friend.
Okay.
Who stopped talking to me.
How recently is this?
3 months ago.
Okay.
And in the heat of a moment, a boundary was crossed on my side.
To that person?
No, she crossed one of my boundaries. Okay. And in a discussion, I raised my voice, and then she stopped talking to me.
Oh, wow.
But what I know from her is her father was also yelled a lot.
Yeah.
So I immediately saw, fuck, right now she's living that.
Yeah.
So I have reached out to her several times and just said, hey, listen, I love you.
Yeah.
And apparently she's not able to receive that right now. So,
well, I mean,
I've just decided I'm just going to keep giving love.
Yeah. That was, or nothing. Because now it could be, I mean, if you, on some level, sorry, I got a bit of itch. I got the haircut, so now I got hair going down my back. You think to some level, like, if she's not able to receive, continually giving may be also reaffirming the negative in her, right? Meaning she very well.
When I say continuously giving, I've sent 2 messages over the last few months.
Yeah. Oh, damn. I would say too much would also be harassment at some point from her perspective, potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that this goes back to one of our discussions that we always love to have about anger. And how once anger is projected as a negative, right? Because I mean, let's face it, my dad being violent and angry, right? When I say angry, let's make it clear, verbally abusive. He wasn't particularly physical. What I got out of that was anger is bad. So whenever anyone was angry, I would automatically judge them, right? On an unconscious level, because I had already taken the belief that anger is bad. And then in that anger, then all of a sudden I would now use the anger against them, right? And then say, oh, that is unacceptable.
Yeah.
And then I create story. Yeah. And little did I know, because it was so deeply held belief in me. I didn't even know it was a belief, by the way. That's how it was. That's how deep it was. Like, I lived in the idea that anger is bad, but I didn't even know that I had that idea. That's how deep it was. And so all of a sudden, when I did wake up to that, obviously I solved so many issues in my life because I actually loved it when people were angry. It's like, fuck, I get to see you finally. Now I really get to understand what's underneath it's the most vulnerable thing if you see it, if you can allow yourself to see it that way. Right. Sorry, I just wanted to profound or whatever the word would be on that. Expound on that. Yeah.
Do you want to look at one of the comments?
Yeah, please.
Mariana.
Many times I find myself and others skipping a step, and they just want to forgive because they know that's what we're supposed to do. There's a step before, which is just expressing the feelings and allow ourselves to feel that hurt and feel that anger.
Let's sit out with that one a bit.
I'm trying to think of a situation.
I know. I actually want to. That's why I've slowed it down a bit. So, someone says, "I forgive you." Okay. I got it. I can feel into it now. So you and I have an interaction I'm not happy with, okay?
Yeah.
And in order to manage my anger and my frustration towards you, I say, you know what? I forgive you. But that doesn't mean the underlying feeling is gone. It just means that I say I've forgiven you, which means, again, going back to the start of this discussion, I still have elevated myself above you. I distance myself from you by saying I forgive you.
So would you say it's right to say skip forgiveness and stay with the emotion?
That's what she's saying. I mean, I'm following. I'm assuming that's what she's saying, by the way. Let's also get that clear. But she's saying there's a step before, which is just expressing the feeling and allow ourselves to feel that hurt and feel that anger. And I would say, and I would agree, of course, I would very much agree with Mariana here, is that if we have not allowed ourselves to feel into the emotion behind the reaction, then basically we don't create the intimacy in order to have trust come back again. And it's a chicken and an egg, I often find. Like, if we don't have trust with another, then we don't share. But then we blame the other for not necessarily giving us the vulnerability that we ask from them.
So it'd be the thing that you want to see in the other person.
Yeah, but you don't give it to them to start. But now you blame it because they don't give it to you. So you can imagine when someone says you're forgiven, where does that leave that other person? Do you feel in connection with them at that moment? No.
Completely not.
No. So now imagine if I said, listen, I was hurt. It was terrible. And I see where it's coming from. And it's and I don't even use the word forgive, like, and it's okay.
Like, I would even say it's too quick to say, okay, like, sit with the feeling.
Yeah, we are a short show, so.
Yeah. Yeah, but just as a thing, like, by saying, okay, it's like saying I forgive you again. It's too quick. Like,
yeah, agreed.
Just stay with the feeling first, right?
Yeah.
I could never find peace with my mother in my life, right?
In what regard?
Well, I never saw her as a good mother. Nurturing,
wow.
like always shouting when we were kids.
Okay.
And I never really, until a few years ago, actually, I could just be with her. And behind all that shouting was actually so much pain. And I projected onto her that the shouting was her not loving us and not caring for us.
Wow.
But she was in so much pain that I just saw that she was never able to give herself love. So when I go to Cyprus now and I say, Mom, let's hug, I realize, wow, she can't even hold me.
Wow.
But right now, it's not personal anymore. It's like, oh, her incapacity to receive love, instead of blaming her. So when I'm with my mother right now, there's nothing also to forgive. I actually had to find peace with myself.
Yeah.
I was going to say forgive myself, but you've just made me realize that.
Sometimes I use those words as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to forgive myself for being such a dick, actually.
Or I forgive myself for not seeing her.
I forgive myself for being such a dick and not seeing her.
Yeah.
I
know you always need to take the most, which is great. I got it.
Let me own that one.
Yeah. When you hug her now, do you feel the resistance in her to the hug?
Yeah.
And then, there's this thing that I often, if one has kids, although I don't have kids, I've been working with hand-in-hand parenting for years, and they have something, I can't remember the exact word. It's I think it's not stay listening, but you actually hold the person and they'll resist it for the first like few minutes because it's so uncomfortable, because they can't ground in the comfort of it. It's almost like they've pushed it away so long. So you hold it that much longer until they actually can feel like, let the love come in and then ground themselves in it.
When I hold her, she actually disconnects.
Wow.
So I'm holding her, and I have held her.
I know you show videos of this online. I know you've posted them before.
And she'll be kind of having her hands like this, and I'm like, "Mom, hold me. You know I'm going back to Amsterdam tomorrow. If the plane falls, this will be the last memory." And she's like, "You bloody bastard."
Manipulation. Now you use your manipulation for good. I see.
So
Yeah.
so then she'll hold, but I could see that there's stiffness there, and it's
Yeah.
like, wow, she's been so hurt in her life that she hasn't allowed herself to feel love.
Yeah.
Because it can be taken away from her. That's what I see.
Yeah.
So in a very loving, playful way, actually, I invite her into my world without enforcing it.
Yeah.
And compassion is beautiful, whether it's in the form of choosing to be silently compassionate or actively expressing it.
Yeah.
I think we should interview this lady and see if, who is she?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, basically, she'll just parrot back, I think, everything we're talking about right now to us.
Yeah.
Mariam Banani. Yeah. The silent compassion. Actually, that I think is some of the most, like if you watch a films, right? You like look at like an American movie against a Japanese movie. Like an American movie, it plays the music, the sentimental music. You're like crying before it's Ronnie was watching Afterlife, I think it's called. It's a movie. It's a series with Ricky Gervais. In the last episode, like someone died, which I didn't see I wasn't watching it, but I just heard the music and I wanted to slit my wrists. It was like so sad, right? Like I was just, so the reason why I'm saying this is because this sad, it's a beautiful, gorgeous music and beautiful state is like creating the emotion in you. And if you go to like the Japanese side, someone will be so quiet in frame with such expressive emotion that you already feel everything inside of yourself. You don't need the stimulus to get there. And I'm often really appreciating that soft, subtle expression, which is so powerful and doesn't need words. It reminds me that one of the stories that got cut from The Wounded Healer was and we might have talked about it, I think, at some point. But when
Wounded Healer, by the way, is Andy's second book, which is coming out in
July 20th.
Yeah.
In the book, the one that got cut was there's an incredibly like a friend of mine named John Lenihan. I went away to my first year of college. His brother commits suicide. I don't get to see him for the first 2 days afterwards. I come back, drive to his house. He's not there. And then his mother says he's at the basketball court. So I then drive to the basketball court. It's a fence. It's not open. So he's on the court with like 10 people, of who I don't know any of them outside of him. So I jump the fence. They're in the middle of the game. I run into the court and I hug him. I don't say, even now it's hard. I don't say a word. I don't try to console him. I just hug him. And like everyone is looking like, what the fuck is going on? Because we're playing a game, but everyone understood their seriousness and what was happening. And they didn't know about his brother either. And when I did the last letter, he wrote me a last letter, and he said that I'd never know the impact that had on his life. That you don't need to talk. You just need to be there in silent compassion to somebody, and that'll be as powerful as anything you could ever imagine. Yeah. So silence is one of the most beautiful things I know. Yeah.
I'm actually holding my tears because I think we've cried every other episode.
This is more emotional for me than I expected.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. That silent compassion. Thank you for Mariam for bringing that in. That's really a beautiful thing to celebrate, to love silently. Yeah. I don't know who Chiron is. Mariam made a comment. Sharon is the wounded healer. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe that's another person who's done that work or has a book. Yeah. And then I have Elizabeth Luntz, who's a friend from the US, saying, why was that guy? I can tell you when you go to, that's what they say is that, you kill your babies. When you have a book, you basically kill your babies. So I also killed the story where I went to Oprah Winfrey's house and tried to pawn a book off on her, and also the stories which I really love, going to Disneyland to relive my childhood and experience that with the eyes of somebody who didn't need Disneyland to escape anymore. Those got cut. So those might come out in blogs and things, but unfortunately they won't come out that way. And thank Mariam again for informing us. She seems to be the one who understands and knows stuff where we just scramble along in our skin. It's Greek mythology. Thank you. Obviously, I didn't study that chapter. I wasn't the best student, except I did like philosophy. That was some of the things that I carried out of my university came from my philosophy course. Yeah. How to understand, whatever we call false news right now. Yeah. And we can go back to Mariana, who's now sharing forgiveness again with us. There's part of forgiveness when we realize that our wounds shaped us and forced us to heal ourselves as well as others. When we see them as gifts, there's nothing to forgive anymore. Yeah. It could be the aspect of storytelling around it as well, right? It's always great if we make peace with it and not say, oh, I'm happy that happened, or something like that. In the new book, there was one chapter, which it's one of the, it's a very, very intense chapter, actually. A woman at one of the sessions, she was taken hostage for several days, raped, and they tried to beat her to death. Like that's how rough it was. And they threw her on the side of the road thinking that she would die, and someone found her, and then she didn't die. She survived. And she was in the session, and it came to the point of writing, and whenever anyone said, I don't know who to write, I'd always say, hey, think about the person that's hardest to write and just try it and see what comes up. So she wrote this man. And when she wrote, you could see she was protesting before she started to write, like kind of half vibrating. And then, but like the fact that she like allowed herself to go there was incredible. And the fact that when I would always say holding that space is I would almost say like an honor to create the safety that one says, hey, I can go there with you. Because I know for me, it took it was hard for me to find people that I trusted to go there with. Because I'd always pick out the one or two things that didn't quite feel right and then use that as a reason for me to protect myself. So yeah, and she forgave him in that message.
I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah. And I think it was after she wrote her message that I wrote the message to the woman that killed my mom. Because in some ways I saw that act, and then I got the second, I always take the universe as sort of trying to communicate to me. And then my friend sent me the email to say, hey, have you written to the woman that killed your mom? And then as soon as those two things they came together, I'm like, okay, obviously this has to be done, right? That's how I tend to work. I don't need any more clues from the universe to say this is something that just is something to explore. Yeah. Wow. We're going to get educated by Maniam again.
In astrology, Chiron is an asteroid that portrays and informs of the wounded healer potential within all of us.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
How can we embody our deepest wounds and still feel them, but we be able to hold them, make space for them in a very embodied way?
Yeah. I mean, that's the journey. You couldn't ask a more essential question as far as I'm concerned. The paradox, if we allow the pain of all of that to be embodied and then go out into the world and realize that we expose ourselves in a vulnerable place. Yeah, she says, as I say it, the tour, the last letter tour that I did with the book tour, I did that 60 times in 3 months. And I made the assumption before, as I told you several times, that I thought I'd be okay because I cried each time. Like I created space for the group by being okay with my own emotions, and my emotions were often sad, so they came up. And I thought afterwards that, I'd be just jumping into my old life again and just taking off, and as if the tears alone would have given me like the release valve of my own emotion, and it just wasn't true. Like what was true was that I then like allowed myself to surrender so much to that pain that it was like, oh wow, like who am I anymore, right? There was no protection at all. And I also felt like I was exhausted and spent. It took me half a year to recover from it. Yeah.
I'm nodding because I resonate with doing my lives in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I felt when you do your lives, I mean, those that don't know, Bambos will go on live on Authentic Relating Amsterdam for an hour a day without a specific subject matter and allow himself to fully embody whatever is going on. And it often can be messy and sad and lonely. So that level of vulnerability over and over and over again, and in some ways, there's also this sense almost like a destruction of an identity. Because whatever comes up, if you're not resisting it and you're just allowing it in, then it begins to become less of something you ignore, avoid. You've gone into every single subject matter in your lives that you'd ever like conceivably imagine would be like vulnerable for you. Right? I mean, to the degree that your family is censoring you, like, Bambo, stop it. Like, we love you, but stop it. Like, that's how far you're taking your exploration with this. And I think it's fantastic. Yeah. So Maniam, I can't agree with you more. I mean, The Wounded Healer, July 20th. All it is for me was, how do we allow ourselves to sit with our own pain and not make that pain something that castrates us, but actually empowers us to live a full, enriched life? And of course, in my actual act, or the channel that I've set to do that, is the Last Letter Project, which you can find if you go to Inspire Vulnerability. On that page, what I've stated is that basically, if you allow yourself to feel the pain of a loss of a loved one, and then you sit and not make that, or not allow that to incapacitate you, but move you to act, move you to share, then basically whatever one writes in that state is so full of love and beauty, it's like poetry. But the thing is that people will not want to go there because they don't want to feel whatever they think the misery is. So it's like misery equals like incapacity, depression, all of the things that we would normally associate it with. Well, what is it if we said, wow, I'm going to take the form of whatever I thought it was, meaning that sadness, and now I'm going to channel it into a love letter.
Yeah. Something very beautiful.
Yeah.
Because Sunday I spent the day yesterday writing letters, right?
Yeah.
And I posted one of your videos, and
one that I also watched with you, and no one else came and joined us. The most embarrassing moment. Hey, you're in a watch video. I'll go on a watch video. I'm watching my own video alone. Ronnie says, "Do you love your own voice?" I have to explain it to her.
Well, I wanted to rewatch it because you said something really beautiful, which I don't think you stated very clearly in your website.
Okay,
and that is, if you don't feel the pain of that you might lose this person, then you don't write.
Yeah.
So I had to sit. I wrote 3 letters yesterday. I had to sit like a good 45 minutes to half an hour for one of them to really tune into, wow, if this person stops breathing, then what do I want to express? Or if I die, what's the thing I would want to communicate? And it was a beautiful half-a-day meditation for me, writing these letters.
Yeah, I think you have such an incredible determination to take my words seriously that very few others do. It's true.
Well, there's not many people I respect in the world, and you know why?
Yeah. Well, I think I'm in great gratitude to you for that. But what I would say is that even if I say it, it's so hard for me to even ask it of someone. Don't start writing until you allow yourself to really embody the feeling that they might not be there tomorrow. I can go there in a second.
Yeah.
With just about anyone in my life. It's why when I say goodbye to someone, I don't say, "Hey, see you later." Like, I fully feel present with the, wow, they might not be there. And then there's so much love that I feel in that moment.
Well, because the letters I sent are to family in Cyprus.
Who already think you're insane.
Well, so they're not here. Like, I see them 4 times a year.
Okay.
So for me, it's to tune in their life. Even though I don't see them on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Like, it would be more easy to write a last letter to you.
Yeah.
Because I see you all the time. So, all of a sudden, losing you from my life would be a gap. Like, fuck.
Yeah. And that's what Ronnie and I have. I mean, we spend a lot of our weekends, like last night, she just cried at the thought of losing me. Right. And then I feel the pain in me. Usually I feel it through her more than just bringing it up in myself. Yeah.
We have 2.5 minutes, Andy.
Yeah, we have 2.5 minutes. Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Yeah. What a beautiful episode. I kind of had the idea we would touch on some beautiful subjects, but it was really a beautiful time. Yeah. And it seems like we have a guest host, even if she wasn't here with us. Yeah. Mariam, it was beautiful being with you today. Thank you for joining us this time. Yeah,
that resonates. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. For those, we've decided that we're going to start asking things of people. By the way, do you have any announcements?
Not right now.
Okay. If you haven't already, please like and follow us, because we do know that we need to create our viewership up if we want to get more exposure in the world. We haven't asked yet, but I think we're going to start asking.
Yeah.
If you watched it, if you liked it, share it. We're going to be pathetic.
Facebook. No, we're not pathetic. We're fucking great. Facebook and YouTube guys are wonderful chaos.
Yes.
And if you really enjoy and you want to support, also share a little review.
Yes, please.
As to how it impacts you, how it impacted you. What else? If you want to join, you can always message us and we can kind of figure out if it makes sense.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
No. Love you.
Love you.
Thank you for joining A Wonderful Chaos.
Adios.
Bye.